All right, welcome, Unsecurity podcast listeners. This is episode 160, the first episode of the new year, 2022. I'm not ready for 2022 yet, but it's here, whether I'm ready or not.
No.
Brad?
Yep.
My co-host, Brad and I. How you doing, Brad?
Good. Got some rest and relaxation over the holidays. It was kind of nice.
Well, at least you did. Kidding.
You got to be intentional, man.
You do have to be intentional, and that's a good tip.
It was hard. The first couple of days, it was like a little bit of withdrawal, but it was really good. I really did unplug from just about everything.
Well, that's there's a great New Year's resolution right there, right? I mean, we talk about New Year's resolutions and what I resolved to do this year better than I did last year. And maybe one of those things that all of us can learn is when to disconnect, when to get out of the chaos, and spend a little time on things that probably matter more, right? Your family, your health.
Yep. Mental health wise, it was absolutely worth it. I mean, especially after how busy we were the last year and going into Q4, just right. It was too cold to go do anything, but it was nice. I played some games. I haven't played, video games for a long time because I haven't had time. So I just kind of got back and did some fun stuff, played games with the kids.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
Well, and and it was a chaotic year, right? I mean, it was certainly busy.
Oh my gosh.
Between, incident responses and, business growth and people needing projects to get completed and, you name it. And then, there was chaos, at school, right? Schools opening, schools closing, kids getting infected.
Yeah.
And then, I know we made some transitions at FRSecure as well, where, as a company grows, you change, people's roles change, a little bit and slightly. And I know that was difficult, but I think I'm hoping that 2022 is going to be a year of some stability. Maybe we'll, as a society, maybe we'll come to our senses on some things a little bit more. And
I'd like stability. It'd be nice.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about, in this episode, there's kind of three things I think we want to cover. One is, New Year's resolutions for information security in 2022. And we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions for the listeners. So you should resolve to do these things if you haven't done them already. And then justify those New Year's resolutions. Hopefully the listeners can take those things and I'd love to do that, but I can't get buy-in or whatever. And then I want to talk about two news articles. One is from TechCrunch. It's Finalsite ransomware attack forces 5,000 schools or 5,000 school websites offline. K-12 is a really important market for us. Because it's mission, we love our kids. We need to raise a better generation or a good generation around cybersecurity. And then we'll talk about the Microsoft issue, the Y2K22 bug.
Yeah, that was, Microsoft.
Don't get me started, man. I'm trying everything I can in the last 6 months to get off of Microsoft everything.
Good luck.
Well, I'm making progress, man. I've always got Microsoft equipment, but my day-to-day equipment now is all Apple or Linux, and I just now made the transition from Outlook, or not Outlook. I did make a transition from Outlook to Spark, and made a transition from PowerPoint to Keynote.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, my issue with it has been that the other options just never have been quite good enough, have been missing features, but I'd probably go back and look. It's changed.
Well, you have to. It's certainly a transition, right? The certain features I've learned that I didn't really need, maybe,
Mm.
or I've found them in different places and found workarounds that work for me now.
Yeah.
It's a transition, though. It was really uncomfortable for a long time. Well, not a long time,
Yeah.
a while.
It takes a couple of weeks to kind of settle in.
Yeah. So New Year's resolutions for information security 2022. What comes to mind
Yeah.
for you?
So I think we kind of hit on it. I think information security people work too hard, right? Like people burn out. So be intentional about taking care of yourself. It's been a long 2.5 years, coming up on 3 years of this, lockdown and enhanced attacks and just the constant barrage of new bugs and vulnerabilities. Take care of yourself. You're not going to be any good if you can't focus because you're so tired or you're burned out and you miss something.
That's great advice. One of the things I've noticed in my own life is when I'm really, really tired, I make really bad choices, or I make worse choices than I was making when I was rested.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. And you don't realize it.
Yeah. So you're not
Right? It's after the fact you suffer the consequences of those. You're like, oh, why would I have done that?
right. And so you're not, because I think one of the things that I sometimes have struggled with is if I take a day off or take some days off that I'm letting my team down, or, I'm going to
Oh my gosh, yes.
I'm going to miss a deadline. Well, the truth is you're doing your team a better service if you do take the time off when you need it. There is no deadline that is so critical that you can't miss it or you can't hand it off to somebody else.
Right. Well, and I've always, once I realized that, because I've suffered from the same thing. And what I've done is, hey, you've got my cell phone. If it's an emergency, text me, call me. But if you don't, I'm not checking.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a way to get a hold of me and kind of realizing, yeah, if I'm truly needed, somebody will reach out.
Right. And if they abuse that privilege, right, if you abuse the privilege of when I give you the cell phone, at least I can have a conversation with you and say, hey, look, that thing you called me about last week?
Yeah.
You didn't need to call me about that.
Well, and for the most part, what I found is that the teams feel more empowered. Like, hey, you trust us.
Right.
Let's do this, right? Like, I'm not micromanaging. I'm not having to approve every little thing. Do your job. I hired you for a reason.
Yeah. So that's a great New Year's resolution. Take care of yourself, and don't think it's just physical health either, right? Physical health is important. A lot of us sit all the time. So getting out, walking around, maybe doing some
Although
exercise.
today that's a little difficult. It's like wind chill is still like -30 at 11 this morning.
This is stupid. The weather's dumb.
I have a path. I'm going to wear out the hardwood in my house from all the walking. I have my Fitbit set to buzz me at 50 minutes each hour if I haven't hit my goal of 250 steps.
There you go. I like that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it works too because you don't realize it. We've all been there. Sit there and it's like 2 o'clock and you're like, oh crap, I haven't moved in like 6 hours.
Yeah. Well, I think there's three aspects to health, right? There's physical health, obviously eating well, garbage in, garbage out, right? So it doesn't matter how much you exercise. If you're eating like crap and drinking coffee all the time, you're going to suffer the consequences, of that. So try to eat well. I think exercise, physical, health.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more to health than physical health. There's mental health. If your mind ain't right, it's okay. You know what I mean? It makes me sad to see people. I was just talking to somebody, ISSA chapter in Alabama yesterday, and they really like the fact that we're so involved with the mental health hackers because their chapter is in Huntsville, Alabama, which is a really strong military presence there. There's military base there. And she said, we really need to do something because nobody talks about mental health. Nobody talks about suicide, depression, anxiety.
I mean, it was hard back whenever that was, October, November, whenever, I can't even remember. It's been so long to talk about it,
Right.
right? Because there is that stigma, and but somebody has to start the conversation.
Well, and the stigma, and what people need to realize is the stigma is bullshit.
Right.
Period.
Everybody, yeah. I was listening to a stand-up comedian. Oh gosh, I think it was Chad Daniels, but he's like, everybody in this room has a mental illness. Ooh, that's a tough one, right? And he's like, but it's true. And if you're sitting there going, well, I don't have any, that's narcissism.
A mental illness.
So that was his
Right.
joke on it. But he's like, but crazy people have been doing it for too long for there not to be an issue with everyone. And yeah, it's true. Everybody suffers from something. Now, what's the degree of it, and how does it impact? Well, maybe it doesn't impact them, on a day-to-day basis, but there's something there. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Being honest with yourself, relying on other people, the thing with, the COVID and everything in the last, couple of years is it's forced so many of us into isolation. It's, so many of the decisions we've been making have been fear driven, not necessarily logic driven.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just makes it all that much more conducive for these mental issues to come out.
Yeah.
I rely heavily on I rely heavily on my wife to tell me when something's off. I have that.
Yeah.
And I think everybody needs to have somebody somewhere kind of keeping an eye on them. Like, hey man, or, you're not right.
Yeah. And don't take offense to it. Right?
Yeah.
They're saying something because they care.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that I found that has really helped me kind of make that transition from work thought to home and kind of like turn the brain off a little bit and like reset it is doing crossword puzzles.
There you go.
Which kind of interesting to do, but if you think about it, okay, I'm still thinking, but I'm slowing down and like relaxing and kind of like transitioning, and it lets me, it works really well.
I love that, man. So when we talk about health, physical health, mental health, and then the third part that I think we don't talk about much either is spiritual health. And I'm not going to get all religious on you, but we are spiritual beings, right? That's why, we've got X percentage of, the population, following Christianity, another X percentage following, Muslim or whatever.
Right.
That's the spiritual piece of who we are as human beings. Don't undersell that. You have to believe in something bigger than yourself.
Right. And I would say, it's not just religion, right? Like, even if you're an atheist or whatever, there is something bigger than you, right? Like, whether it's just human, kindness or, whatever it is, there is something about that. I'm with you.
Yeah. So it's a three-legged stool. When we talk about New Year's resolutions for us as security people going into, this new year, make it focus on these three areas. Ask yourself these questions. What am I doing for my own benefit, for my own health in each of these areas? Don't try to do I don't think diets work very well where you say, I'm going to do a strict diet. You have to start somewhere. We're also creatures of habit, right? So it's going to take a little while before you get into this new habit, this new way of life, if it's new for you. But physical health, mental health, and spiritual health, you're going to be a better security person for it. Any one of these things suffers, your work suffers. Trust me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So from, how about one New Year's resolution for business, right? So a business, what New Year's resolution should they make around information security? You give me one and I'll give you one.
I think focus less on the blinky lights and focus more on the fundamental.
Please. Yes. Preach it, brother.
You know, it doesn't. We've seen it. We've talked about it. Doesn't matter how many blinky lights you have, how much you spend, if it's not properly installed and configured, or you don't know what your asset inventory is, it's not going to be effective. It's, you know, yeah.
Yep.
Quit.
So the good. Go ahead.
I was going to say, think about how many incidents we've dealt with that wouldn't have been an incident had they done the fundamentals, not just put a blinky light in place. Oh, well, I've got this IPS or IDS, or I've got this EDR. Well, yeah, but you don't have it everywhere, or it's not configured, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Do the basics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, ask yourself 2 questions as a business. Number one, what are the fundamentals? I think a lot of people don't even know what those fundamentals are. We could dedicate an entire series to this, so I'm not going to dig deep into the fundamentals. But what are the fundamentals, and then how are we doing against those fundamentals? That is where you're going to find 90+% of all of your risk. It's not going to be the blinky lights. The blinky lights are supplemental to the basics and the fundamentals. My number one fundamental, if you want a good starting point, roles and responsibilities. Who's responsible for security here? Ultimately, if you say it's the CEO, well then put your money where your mouth is. That second question, how well are we following these fundamentals? Does the CEO ever have conversations with you as the security person around information security? Are they a champion of information security, or are they just a tolerant? You know, they just tolerate it.
Right.
A big difference.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I work with, you know, all kinds of clients, and every single one that is successful has executive level, C-level, board level champion that supports it, advocates for it, and the ones that struggle don't. I don't think I've ever seen a company that had that high level champion not be doing the right things or doing well.
Right. So I agree with you. Your New Year's resolution for 2022 is to focus on the fundamentals, focus on the basics. Right? You've got governance, roles and responsibilities. You've got asset management. Those are all basic fundamental things that you really need to have squared away. It's not like you don't do all the other stuff, but that is the foundation of your security program. Spend time there. Make sure that you've implemented it, that's designed correctly, it's implemented correctly, and it's being maintained correctly. Just like anything you build, it has to be maintained. And so if you just build it and then walk away from it and go focus all your time on the blinky stuff, it's probably deteriorated by now. Focus on it.
Yep. Yeah.
Good. Well, those are good New Year's resolutions. And one of the things that we're doing, and then we'll talk about because I spend most of my time at Security Studio. I obviously very, very, very involved with FRSecure, but not as tactical as, you know, Security Studio. Our New Year's resolution for Security Studio is to really focus even more on our target markets, which are the underserved markets. That's state and local government. It's K-12. It's higher education, small to mid-sized businesses, and individual people. We're not focusing, you know, much of our time on, you know, big companies, big enterprise companies. We do have those as customers, but it's not our focus. We resolved to create more solutions or closer with them this year to fix the broken industry, man. What's a New Year's resolution for FRSecure?
I think part of it is we're growing pretty rapidly, and so it's going to be maintaining our standards, right? Yeah. Don't just because we're growing, and that's going to be a big thing that in my role this year is going to be, you know, making sure we have those things in place so that we do get consistent results, that we don't, you know, there's no corners cut. You know, it just we're growing, and there's pains that come with that. So how can we best minimize that? How can we reduce the risk?
I love that, man. And you're the perfect guy for that, because you are so bought in to the mission and you do things right that you won't allow us to cut corners. I love it.
No, I can't do it. I don't think I ever have. I'm actually updating our incident response plan. Almost done with that because it needed to be, you know, when everything shut down, it slipped under the radar. We didn't do the annual review. It happens. Okay, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen in the future? Right, those types of things.
That's perfect, man. I'm excited for what this year brings about for you personally, for you professionally, and for FRSecure. It's going to be a lot of fun this year.
I'm excited. We got nothing but good things.
That's cool. All right, so there's some New Year's resolutions. We just shared some of ours. Hopefully, it's a good time for you to reflect and put some focus to your own 2022 personally, professionally,
Yep.
and for those you serve, whether it be a business or multiple businesses. All right, so first news item we'll talk about real quick. We got a few more minutes. Is let's talk about the TechCrunch article. The title of this article is "Finalsite Ransomware Attack Forces 5,000 School Websites Offline." Now, the date today is January 7th. This article came out this morning at 8:37, so not very long ago. So this is pretty recent.
Yeah, it started on the 4th.
Yeah, 5,000 Finalsite customers.
And they haven't said, they won't say, but I will say I know that my kid's school district has had website issues starting on Tuesday. So pretty sure that falls in line.
Right. And for listeners who don't know who Finalsite is basically a hosting platform for focusing primarily on schools, right? So school districts, from design to hosting, content management solutions, CMS solutions, all that stuff. Finalsite was hit by a ransomware attack, and that, when that hits a provider like that, it hits all their customers.
Yeah, and this is why vendor risk management is so important.
For sure.
What do they have in place? What remedies do the schools have for being down for, 4 or 5 days?
Mm-hmm.
Important.
It is important, absolutely. And some schools are much more dependent upon those online presences than others. Typically, it's the larger school districts, the districts with more resources, more money, that are highly dependent upon these things. Some of the rural school districts, they probably didn't even notice or may not have noticed, but they're probably not one of the 5,000 customers either, right?
Right. Yeah. The thing on that article that I was just like, oh, come on. Company said there is, quote, no evidence, end quote, that any data was taken as a result of the ransomware attack, but the spokesman declined to say if Finalsite has the means, such as logs, to detect the exfiltration of data, citing an ongoing investigation. They don't.
I know, and that's the biggest frustrating thing for me in any incident response is when you go and try to find the evidence and there ain't none.
Right. Well, because if they had it, don't you think they would be like, yes?
Right.
The only reason I would say, no, we don't have, decline to comment is if I know or I don't know if we have it.
Right. So they have 8,000 global customers, according to the article. 5,000-ish were affected. Like most incidents, more details will come out in time. But it does, to Finalsite's credit, it does appear as though they responded fairly well because a lot of those sites are back up again.
Yes, I'd agree there.
And so I don't know if they paid the ransom. I'm guessing not. I hope not. Maybe they restored from backup.
I hope not. Hopefully they were able to restore from backup.
Yeah. It'll be interesting when more details come out about that.
They took the customer sites offline upon noticing the problem and rebuilt the system in a clean environment from the ground up. So that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so K-12 is, a focus for FRSecure and for Security Studio. Again, we love helping school districts. I think it's really important that, one, they're overworked. They're in chaos with all the stuff going on, in the world. We can help them simplify security, make it not quite as daunting. So that's why we wanted to talk about this article. Now, the fact that they were able to restore in a clean environment and do so quickly, that shows you that they were following some really good best practices that everybody should be following, right? You back up
Right.
things. And don't air gap. I don't even like that word air gap because I think so many people don't even know what the hell that means. Just take your backups offline completely. You know what I mean? Forget about the air gap. If you can get to them online, so can an attacker.
Right.
So
Yep.
that's good to know. So Finalsite, I would, based on just what I read, and I don't have all the details, Finalsite is a company that I would probably continue to do business with if I was a school district. The fact that they were able to
Yep.
respond like this.
Yeah, you know, the only thing that I've seen that, you know, gives me any pause is the data exfil, and if they have logs or not, and the no comment. But maybe it's legit, and they want to wait until they know for sure.
Yeah, I'm guessing there was data exfil because that's what we see now. I mean, if I were to guess that there was,
Yeah.
and I don't know if they. I don't know the architecture, in terms of what type of data they would have exfilled. But if you're exfilling public website stuff, like who cares?
Right.
But some people store really, really sensitive data, unprotected on websites. So I'm guessing that was probably here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like. It's funny how much stuff you can learn for people who do, OSINT on, or just intelligence gathering on publicly available information. How much stuff you can find on websites,
scary.
right? And it's funny because yesterday I was doing some squirrel. Yesterday I was doing some, small company, so I was doing some website development stuff on Security Studios site. Probably shouldn't have been, but I don't follow the rules, so whatever. The
I mean,
but there's some nice WordPress plugins. Our site's a WordPress site. You could go find that out, easily. But there's some nice WordPress plugins where you can essentially scan for publicly or for PHI, privacy information, that work pretty well. So,
nice.
check your sites regularly for that stuff.
Scary. I like to mess with people, anytime, meet somebody new and they ask what you're doing, and being able to go and pull up their information, like while they're standing there. And I'm by no means an expert in OSINT.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Some of the things that our social engineers do are far beyond what what I do. But yeah, it's out there, and they're always like, whoa.
Right. Right. Oh wow, I didn't know they knew that. Well, they do. Yeah. All right. So the other article from the Hacker News, we'll talk about this briefly. We'll do our shout outs and then get on with the weekend. So Hacker News, this is one that you brought up. Actually, you brought up both of these news ones, so good job. The title is Microsoft Issues Fix for Exchange Y2K22 Bug That Crippled Email Delivery Service.
What's so funny to me is my first job in IT was walking around with a floppy disk, patching for Y2K, and nothing happened. Now here we are 22 years later, and boo!
Right. Well, in this case, what was the problem was related to an update from Microsoft, right, that disabled delivery of email because there was a conflict with malware scanning.
Yeah, it was unable to convert the date to and so because it couldn't process, it just stopped everything.
Yeah, the error code, whatever, long error code, description, the error description is can't convert 2201010001 too long. So it had a problem flipping to 22, whatever, the next.
0101.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
So this only impacted on-premise Exchange Server 2016 and 2019 servers, I think. It didn't affect Office 365 or people in the cloud.
No. Yeah, we were joking that, they probably knew about this, but we're waiting. They're just trying to drive people to the cloud version so they don't have to support on-prem anymore.
I would not put anything past Microsoft's business practices. That would not surprise me one bit. I've seen that happen
I mean, they
so
were
many
able to come out
times.
with it very quickly.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing, because some people say, well, why the hell would you be running on-prem Exchange anyway? Well, there's legitimate reasons, to be running Exchange on premise. You do have better control over your environment. You do have better control over evidence collection and logs and all those other good things.
Yep.
If you are good at running an Exchange server and you're good at, hardening, configuring, maintaining, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I know we have customers that run on-prem because they've got incredibly sensitive information. And they can, like you just said, they can better protect that, log it, see what's going on. There's just better control.
Right.
They can restrict who can get to the server, how they can get to it,
Yeah, I'm starting to see a trend. I'm starting to see a trend of actually people moving back out of the cloud.
Well, it's so cyclical. I mean, we had terminals, then when everybody had a computer, now we have virtual, then we outsourced, now everybody's coming back in-house, everyone went to the cloud. No, now everyone's back because they realize the cloud is just other people's computers. It's just so funny how cyclical the pattern is. You can call it.
Yeah, it's totally true. All right, so if you are running on-prem Exchange, I'm guessing you already have this fixed, because if you didn't, you haven't been delivering email for a while. People notice that pretty quickly. All right, Mr. Nye, any shout outs for you?
It seems like I do this all the time, but just the team that we have working, from the operation, tech services, from the entry level to the most senior, everybody's it's just awesome. Watching people support each other and watching people grow and be able to move into new roles and take advantage of what they've learned. It's just fantastic to see and watch everybody support each other.
That's cool.
And it goes company wide, but I'm gonna focus on the consultants and IR team and tech services.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna give two shout outs. One is, I promised I'd give him a shout out. A guy named Austin reached out to me who wants to participate in Project Hyphy. And I thought, this is cool, and completely bought in on our way of doing things, the mission, doing this because it's the right thing to do. It was interesting because he, in his message to me, it was, I'm not sure if I have the right, I'm not sure if I'm skilled enough or whatever. It's like, we can take care of that, man, because I think Oscar's vision for Project Hyphy is to really standardize it and solidify it and then open it up to the community. So it could be a great opportunity. But I love the fact that he reached out to me. That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then the other shout out is for Ryan, man. He's on one side, it's like, man, you are really stepping up. On the other side, it's like, I hope you're not doing, following me as a leader and how much you're working, because you're going to look like this and feel like this. And, I don't know if it's healthy, but he's really stepped up, taking ownership of a lot of things, which is exactly what you want.
Nice.
Yeah. And last year, Security Studio had a 90-ish% growth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So kicked some butt last year. Excited for 2022. All right. Well, that's it. Unsecurity podcast listeners, I hope you have a fantastic week and do work on those New Year's resolutions. We'll see you next week.